A lot of changes in FT817OS. We have a executable file that now starts the program. This is a basic installation. Nothing's been done. We're going to add a radio. And now we can give the radio a name. It's a new feature. Everything's supported. The program now supports multi radios. And I'm going to show you in a second. We create a radio just like we've always done. And this is the bottom radio, I believe. You can see we now have separate named files. I'm going to exit out right quick. Have a look. We have a config directory now. And if we look within the config directory, we see that the files have all been created under the name of the program. And this is the master list of radios. I just wanted to point that out. These files haven't changed. They're now just, it allows for multiple radios by assigning the files names. Let me go back into the program. And we do a show radios. And we can see we have the radio we added. But I'd like to add the top radio now. So I do an add radio. And it can be on dvb-t USB 1. Call that KN4PKY. 38400. And we use log file. And we'll now build the configuration for this radio. Now once this configuration is built, the first radio is automatically the default. And you can do a show radios. Now I can set this radio for the default. Default just means the radio that it is going to start on startup. These flags will not change until you exit. But I could set default radio KN4PKY. And it's set as the default. Now nothing really changed, but if I do exit out, and while I'm here I'm going to go to config and do a LSL. And you can see that we now have the configurations of two radios in there. I'm going to start the program again. And we can see KN4PKY was the default. If I do a show radios, I see both radios. And right now I'm in USB 1. I'm going to do a list. Maybe I want to go to my other radio, switch radio KJ4TLB. And I can do a list. And I can see I'm back in the other radio. If I do show radios, we can see KN4PKY is default, and perhaps I would like to remove that radio, which I can. If I do remove it, however, since it's the default, it will move the default back to the other radio. Remove radio KN4PKY. And that radio has been removed. If I do a show radios, we can see that I'm back to my original radio that was in here. One radio has to be in the system. You cannot remove this radio or there would be no radios. As a matter of fact, if you do remove it, it'll probably take you back to the initial configuration. I'm going to test this, but I'm going to put a stop on it. If it does work, this is going to be added, but I'm not going to make a movie for it. KJ4TLB. And yes, I did put a stop because you cannot remove the active radio. So this is what has been added. Now we can have multiple radios. I may or may not add just one more feature, which would be to copy the memory from radio A to radio B. But I wanted to make this movie to show you the functionality of the multi-radio system that we now have. You can also create another radio on the existing serial port if you have more than one radio that you just use on one serial port. I will, however, remind you though that it is somewhat dangerous, and if you try and do it, it will warn you. Add radio, and I do a dvb-t USB 0. it's going to tell me that another device is using that port. And really not a good idea, because if you back up the software calibrations and you forget what radio you're on, it's just going to cause you problems. And that's it. That's multi-radio support in FT817OS.